welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I am your host, Shivangi Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. Kannauj unveils its scented legacy and perfume tourism revolution. Violent clashes in Bangladesh over job quota system leave several dead. And activist exposes Pakistan's agenda to divert attention from POJK's critical condition. Let's begin the show. Perfume is powerful. Certain scents are able to evoke memories, passion and inspiration. Kannauj, known as the perfume city in India's northern Uttar Pradesh state, boasts a centuries-old tradition of perfume making. The small city exports its exquisite fragrances globally. Let's explore the unique art of perfume making in Kannauj and how it has become a significant center for the perfume trade.
Kannauj, known as the perfume city, fills its streets with enchanting fragrances thanks to its centuries-old tradition of itr or perfume production. Despite the march of modernity, this historical city's perfume industry has preserved its ancient methods, notably the Deccan bhabka or pot and distillation process. This meticulous technique involves harvesting flowers from nearby fields, boiling them in large pots, and collecting the aromatic steam through pipes. The final step separates the water from the pure perfume, capturing the essence of the flowers in its most natural form.
हम लोगों के काम में जितना भी फूल हैं वो सब सीज़न बाय सीज़न होते हैं। जैसे अभी इस टाइम आप लोग आए तो इस टाइम बेला का समय है। बेला रात में ही आता है। दोपहर में फूल वाले अपने खेतों से फूल को तोड़ते हैं, शाम तक वो पूरा कलेक्ट कर लेते हैं जगह जगह से, कहीं से भी। उसके बाद वो हम लोगों के पास लेके आते हैं। यहाँ पे हम लोग उसको थोड़ा सा फैलाते हैं, उसकी क्वालिटी चेक करते हैं। क्वालिटी चेक करने के बाद हम लोग इंडेगो में उसको डालते हैं, डिस्टिलेशन करते हैं और अतर बनाते हैं। अतर का जो मेन चीज़ है वो हम लोगों का काम ये है कि अतर जो शब्द है उसी में सब कुछ आपको समझ में आना चाहिए। अतर का मतलब होता है किसी चीज़ को किसी चीज़ में उतारना, उसको बोलते हैं इत्र।
There are around 350 perfume manufacturing units in Kannauj, producing perfumes from various flowers, henna and even clay. Pranjal Kapoor owns one of these units and represents the 5th generation in his family business. The perfume made in his factory are exported to many countries around the world.
People are coming back to basics. After COVID, especially, everybody wants to get natural. So it's a cycle. While there is tradition in this, we also have modernity in this. So it is an amalgamation of modernity with tradition. People want to come back to the roots. They want to smell the earth. They want to smell the natural raw material. And so the industry is benefiting from this shift of consumer behavior. And our fragrances, our athars, our essential oils which are natural in nature are being demanded by many parts of the world more than before.
Kannauj is not only home to perfume manufacturing units but also boasts numerous shops specializing in perfumes. Among them is Gauri Sugandh, renowned for its exquisite fragrances. Nishish Tiwari, representing the 4th generation of the family business, manages this shop, catering to both domestic and international markets with their premier perfumes.
ये काम तो तब तक रहने वाला है जब तक अर्थ रहने वाली है, क्योंकि ये टोटल नेचुरल का काम है और अर्थ से ही जुड़ा हुआ है। कोई भी इसमें कोई वैसा आइटम है नहीं सिंथेटिक इसमें जो कहीं ना कहीं से हम सिंथेटिक का यूज़ कर रहे हैं। फूल भी नेचुरल है, उसको निकालने का प्रोसेस भी नेचुरल है और उससे निकला हुआ प्रोडक्ट भी नेचुरल है। उसके बाद दूसरी चीज़, ये प्रोडक्ट का अपना खुद का इतना बड़ा क्राइटेरिया है सर, ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड इसकी मार्केट है। हमारा कोई कंपटीटर नहीं है वर्ल्ड में, कन्नौज के अलावा और कोई भी इतर नहीं बनाता इतना।
Meet Pranav Kumar, the 8th generation custodian of his family's perfume legacy. Beyond continuing his family's tradition in the perfume industry, he has pioneered perfume tourism to promote his city. Pranav has revitalized his ancestral mansion, transforming it into a perfume bar and mini hotel. Here, tourists can immerse themselves in the art of perfume making, crafting their own unique scents while learning about the intricate processes involved.
But when I came back to Kannauj, when I moved back to take care of the fragrance business, I just realized that there is so much potential here, not just in terms of perfumery, but in terms of the history, art and culture that once was prevalent in Kannauj in a very big way. So the opportunity to kind of showcase that to the world is where I thought about perfume tourism, and we all know that tourism brings a huge employment to a location and brings a huge spotlight on any industry.
The traditional perfume making process and its fragrances have placed Kannauj prominently on the global map, nurturing the flourishing perfume industry. This city of perfume stands as a vital pillar of India's cultural and industrial heritage.
Moving on, in Bangladesh, protests over public sector job quotas have erupted into violent clashes with security forces, resulting in at least 147 fatalities. The demonstrations were fueled by anger over a policy that reserves 30% of government jobs for the families of those who fought in the 1970 War of Independence. The unrest has spread across multiple cities, with thousands of protesters demanding reform and an end to the quota system. Security forces have responded with tear gas and rubber bullets in an attempt to disperse the crowds, leading to further escalation and widespread chaos. The government has called for calm and has promised to review the quota system. But tensions remain high as the nation grapples with the aftermath of the violence.
Bangladesh Army forces patrol the capital city of Dhaka as an indefinite curfew remained in place following clashes between student protesters and security forces, which resulted in at least 147 deaths across the country. Student protesters had given the government 48 hours to release detained protest leaders, lift the curfew and reopen universities that had been closed since July 17. Thousands were injured in last week's protest when students took to the streets demanding reforms to a quota system governing the distribution of government jobs. With Dhaka in turmoil, many Bangladeshis who had come to the capital seeking work are now stranded. Telecommunications disruptions continued a day after the Supreme Court scrapped some controversial job quotas.
শান্তি তো হচ্ছেই গাড়ি পাওয়া যায় না বাস এগুলা পাওয়া যায় না এখন সামনে যাব গিয়ে গাড়িতে উঠবো আর কি
ওটি আজকে ঠিক করতেছি এত দিন ধরে ঠিক করতে পারি না কারণ আমাদের সাথে আবার ডেস্কোর লাইন আছে এখন ঠিক করে দিই যদি ওরা চালু করে দেয় তাহলে ওনারাও পাবে
Meanwhile, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has blamed her political opponents for the deadly violence during recent student-led protests against government job quotas and stated that the curfew would be lifted when the situation improves. Her comments came a day after the country's top court agreed to scrap most job quotas, following days of clashes between protesters and security forces that led to the government shutting down internet services, imposing a curfew and deploying the army.
এখানে সবথেকে সেন্সিটিভ হচ্ছে ছাত্র ওখানে বসা আমি জানি না ছাত্রদের সাথে আরও কাজ ছিল তাদের কোনো ক্ষতি না হয় সেদিকে আমাদের দৃষ্টি দিতে হয়েছে আমরা পুলিশ আমাদের লোকবল সব কিছু দিয়ে চেষ্টা করেছি যেদিন ছাত্ররা এই অগ্নিসন্ত্রাস যখন শুরু হলো জ্বালাও পড়া শুরু হলো তারা আন্দোলনকারীদের কাছ থেকে তারা বললো যে এর সঙ্গে আমরা জড়িত না আর এটাকে আমরা কন্ডেম করি এটা আমরা চাই না তারা যখন সরে এসেছে আমি সেই সময় আমরা আর্মি নামিয়েছি আমি কিন্তু তার আগে আর্মি নামাইনি আমাদের অনেকেই বলতে চেষ্টা করে ছাত্রদের বিরুদ্ধে আর্মি নামানো আমি রাজনীতি করে ছাত্র রাজনীতি করে এসেছি ওই ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকে শুরু করে
The new quota system aims to honor and support the families of freedom fighters who contributed to the country's liberation. However, it has sparked significant controversy and protests, especially among students and young job seekers, who argue that the quotas are unfair and exacerbate high youth unemployment rates. Critics claim the system disproportionately benefits a specific group and reduces opportunities for the broader population.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
Devotees queued outside temples in huge numbers on Monday this week to mark the beginning of the auspicious month of Sawan or monsoon, dedicated to the Hindu god of destruction, Lord Shiva. Devotees were seen huddling near Lord Shiva's idol to offer milk and water, a customary practice in Hindus. The month also marked the onset of the annual pilgrimage Kanwad Yatra, in which devotees of Lord Shiva travel barefooted to various parts of the country to fetch holy water from the river Ganga. Hindus believe that praying and performing rituals in this month bring peace, spiritual growth, and prosperity to their lives. At least 18 people were killed when a regional passenger plane belonging to Nepal's Surya Airlines crashed and caught fire while taking off from the capital Kathmandu, according to officials. The plane, carrying 2 crew members and 17 technicians, was going for regular maintenance to Nepal's new Pokhara airport, which opened last January and is equipped with aircraft maintenance hangars. Nepal has been criticized for a poor air safety record, and nearly 350 people have died in plane or helicopter crashes in the Himalayan country since 2000. Recently, at least 72 people were killed in a Yeti Airlines crash in January 2023 that was later attributed to the pilots mistakenly cutting off power. Taiwan conducted an anti-landing live fire drill on the outlying island of Penghu this week, the third day of its annual war game that has been partially impacted by an approaching typhoon. This year's Han Kuang military exercise aimed to be as close as possible to actual combat with no script and simulating how to repel a Chinese attack. On the coast of Penghu Island, tanks rolled down the dirt road while firing shots at the flare targets on the ocean, with other soldiers took position on mobile missiles and by the coast. Live fire drills will only take place on Taiwan's outlying islands, including Kinmen, Matsu and Penghu, which sit nestled next to the Chinese coast and were the scene of on-off clashes during the height of the Cold War. China, which views democratically governed Taiwan as its territory, has been staging regular exercises around the island for 4 years to pressure Taipei to accept Beijing's claim of sovereignty, despite Taiwan's strong objections.
Moving on, for over 7 decades, Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir has faced severe deprivation, with ongoing inflation and shortages of essentials like electricity, flour and wheat exacerbating the struggles of its residents. In a recent scathing video statement, POJK activist Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza condemned Pakistan for its hypocrisy and neglect of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He exposed Pakistan's role in orchestrating terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, using the Hurriyat Conference for anti-India propaganda and diverting attention from POJK's dire situation.
In a recently released video statement, Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza, a POJK activist, lambasted Pakistan for its hypocrisy and undermining the situation in the illegally occupied territory of POJK.
Hurriyat Conference was created by the ISI.
The activist exposed Pakistan's hypocrisy, who is behind orchestration of terror attacks in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and using organizations like the Hurriyat Conference for running anti-India propaganda, while also diverting attention from the critical condition in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
The recent conference of all parties Hurriyat Conference in Pakistan and Lahore, that was held on the 18th and 19th of July, basically is trying to give legitimacy to the attacks that are taking place in Jammu. These attacks are caused by infiltration of Pakistani-based proxy terrorists. And All-Party Hurriyat Conference is now asking the world community to look into the atrocities that are taking place against the general population of Indian Union Territory Jammu Kashmir by Indian government. They are trying to divert the attention of international media and international human rights observers from what is going on in Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir. The fact of the matter is that in Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir, there is a civil disobedience movement.
Mirza highlighted ongoing civil disobedience in POJK and Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, where thousands are protesting against unjust taxes on electricity bills. For over 7 decades, the illegally occupied POJK has been deprived of basic amenities, and the ongoing inflation in the region has aggravated the struggle of the general public to sustain their livelihoods. The activist further highlighted the severe shortages of basic necessities, including electricity, flour and wheat, and the revocation of subsidies on essential food items in POJK.
Pakistan has imposed illegal and unjust taxes on the people of Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir. There is no electricity, there is no flour, there is a crisis of wheat because they have cut the subsidies. The population has grown and the allocation of wheat and flour to various places inside POJK has not been revised. So there is a crisis of democracy, there is a crisis of economic rights, there is a crisis of ownership of resources in POJK.
It has been over a year since the residents of POJK have been protesting against inflated electricity bills and high prices of wheat, flour and other essential food items. But the local administration, in cahoots with Islamabad, has regularly snubbed these protests and demands of the locals. Amidst inflation and a high degree of suppression from the administration, matters are worsening in POJK. There are signs of unrest brewing among the locals, and it would be no surprise if yet another massive protest against Pakistan and its stooge administration erupts across the illegally occupied territory in the coming times.
In a remarkable event, the temple dedicated to goddess Uma Bhagwati in Anantnag was reopened after over 3 decades. The occasion saw a large turnout of Kashmiri Pandits and significant participation from the local Muslim community. The idol of goddess Uma, brought from Rajasthan, was ceremoniously placed in the Sanctum Sanctorum. The reopening was marked by hymns and kirtans, symbolizing communal harmony and unity. Devotees from across the region celebrated the revival of this sacred space, reflecting a deep sense of hope and togetherness. Take a look.
In a significant event marking a cultural and religious milestone, the temple dedicated to goddess Uma Bhagwati in the Anantnag district of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir was reopened after a hiatus of more than 3 decades. The event was notable not only for the large gathering of Kashmiri Pandits, but also for the active involvement of the local Muslim community. During the reopening, the idol of goddess Uma, which was brought from Rajasthan, was placed in the Sanctum Sanctorum.
विशेषकर जो आज ये हो रहा है, ये माता उमा के प्रांगण में दोबारा से यज्ञ होना, माता की मूर्ति पुनर्निर्माण, पुनर्स्थापना होनी, ये एक ड्रीम कम ट्रू हम सब के लिए है। लोग कल मैं देख रहा था जो जम्मू से कैंपों से आए हुए हैं हमारे शरणार्थी जो आज कहलाते हैं, वो खुद को चिमटियां काट रहे थे बार बार। मैं ऐसे चकित से रहता था, मैं पूछ रहा था कुछ माताओं बहनों से ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हैं आप? वो ये कह रहे हैं कि हम ये वाकई में सच में देख रहे हैं या एग्जैक्टली यही उनका कहना था।
Devotees came in large numbers from different parts of Jammu and Kashmir to pay their obeisance to the goddess. The whole compound reverberated with hymns and kirtans performed by devotees attending the ceremony. Goddess Uma Devi is believed to have originated as a spring with 5 channels resembling an Omkar. The sanctum sanctorum of Goddess Uma Bhagavati is surrounded by 5 kunds, namely Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra and Shiv Shakti. The reopening of the Uma Bhagavati temple was an emotional and divine event for devotees from different parts of the Union Territory and the nation.
हम लोगों ने सबने मिलके, पूरे गांव वालों ने मिलके, इस क्षेत्र के लोगों ने मिलके पैसा डोनेट किया और इस मंदिर को आज शानदार तरीके से बनाया। और इस मंदिर में आज एक मूर्ति की, उमा भगवती मूर्ति की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हो रही है और एक महायज्ञ हो रहा है। ये हमारे लिए इमोशनल तो है ही है, लेकिन बहुत ही आनंद का विषय है, बहुत ही मज़ा आ रहा है। हम 3 दिन से 4 दिन से यहाँ पे है, बहुत आनंद आ रहा है और हमें लगता है कि शायद हमने फिर वो चीज़ अचीव करी है जो दोस्त हो गई थी और हमें कोई उम्मीद नहीं थी इस चीज़ से।
The collaborative efforts of the local Muslim community and the Kashmiri Pandits in managing the event were truly heartwarming. It's a symbol of the enduring unity and communal harmony practiced by the residents for centuries.
हम तहे दिल से खुश हैं और शुक्र करते हैं कि ये लोग हमारे पास आए, हमारे भाई हैं, मिलजुल के यहाँ पे जिस तरह से पहले माहौल था वही बने। हम इस चीज़ से बड़े इनका शुक्रगुजार हैं। जितने भी मुसलमान लोग यहाँ पे हैं सारे आज खुशियाँ मना रहे हैं कि वो पुराना जो भाईचारा है वो फिर थोड़ा सा ग्राउंड पे देखने को मिल रहा है। जी, तो अभी आप खुश हैं? आप लोगों ने वेलकम किया इन सभी पंडितों का? बिल्कुल, मैं कल भी यहाँ आया था, परसों भी आया था। पंडित लोग जितने हैं इनका तहे दिल से मैं वेलकम करता हूँ।
The reopening of Uma Bhagavati Mandir was not just a religious event, it was a celebration of unity, hope and the revival of a sacred space cherished by many across the country.
Now it's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We'll be back next week at the same time. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.